Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. For the second day in a row, an Iranian ballistic missile has struck inside Israel, bringing the total killed in the country to 11. But overall, Israel is seeing fewer missiles per salvo compared to the number that Israel had seen in the 12-day war last summer. Is it Israel's assessment that Iran's arsenal of missiles and missile launchers has been severely degraded and thus the reason for the fewer missiles? Or is there concern that perhaps Iran is hoping to drag this war out longer for a war of attrition and holding back the number of missiles that they are sending and lobbing at Israel?
First of all, unfortunately, we have more casualties because we had 2 casualties this morning. Secondly, there is no doubt that the ability of the Iranians to launch on Israel and generally speaking also on its neighbors decreased because we hunt so many of the launchers and did some other things that it's really going down. From our point of view, we have another challenge in terms of missiles. That's the Hezbollah from Lebanon that's launching missiles as well. But altogether, of course, they will calculate the numbers of missiles they are throwing on us and on our neighbors. But it's no doubt that there is a decrease in their abilities to do so.
I want to get to your fight with Hezbollah to your north in just a moment. But to stick with this point, over the weekend, the IDF Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, told Israelis and the Israeli public to be patient and to be prepared for the war to, quote, take a long time. How long is a long time?
If you want to be successful, you are simply not telling the other side how much time you are ready to fight. Basically, we have an objectives and we have enough patience and enough ammunition in order to do so. So it is very important to work according to the plan we have with our American allies, and I'm sure that we will be successful. We are already successful. We are working against a very mad regime. Today they again target Turkey. They target basically all U.S. allies in the Middle East, and think what they would have done if they would have nuclear umbrella. This is what they are doing when they are in inferiority, which is clear. But think what they would have done if they had nuclear weapons. They're already using this cluster warheads. It is very important to understand that it is not only they target civilians, but they use the way to maximize civilian casualties. And this is, of course, a war crime.
And yet the regime in Iran, though perhaps more fragile, still holds. In fact, Iran's Assembly of Experts just named Mog'tebā Kh'meināi to succeed his assassinated father. You've made it clear that the ultimate goal is regime collapse. So is Mog'tebā Kh'meināi now a target for Israel?
Well, you'll have to wait and see. But it is clear that he continued the very extremist and mad policies of his father. He's a hardliner. He is anti-American, he's anti-Western. And you can see already the cracks inside this regime. And I'll give you one example that demonstrated that during last weekend, we had heard the Iranian president, Pezeshkian, speaking about that they are apologized in front of their neighbors and they will not attack them again if they will not be attacked from the states. But eventually, you heard the speaker of their parliament saying, no, we will continue to attack. And on the ground, they continue to attack their neighboring states. So you can conclude, first, you have cracks which are already open. And second, it is clear that the hardliners are still calling the shots there in Tehran. And frankly, with these people, you cannot do anything serious if you want to solve conflict, as we saw in all the efforts that the U.S. had done before June and before this attack. during the time of Khamenei.
Though we do know that President Pezeshkian didn't wield much power even prior to these strikes beginning last week. But your point is noted. I do want to ask you about a point that you have made yourself, and that is that Iranians cannot topple the regime without some kind of help from the outside. That was your quote. Yet U.S. intelligence predicts that even a mass military assault from the skies won't crumble this regime. So what does Israeli intelligence know that perhaps the U.S. doesn't?
You know, predictions about this kind of things never works. But I said this regime can change during the campaign, but we can see that also after the campaign. As much as I think that what we had saw on the streets of Iran during December, during January, was a result of our previous attacks on June. And that cracked the image of power of this regime internally and externally. So this is very important to give the people of Iran the conditions to act. And you do that by systematically decreasing the powers of the regime, which is a very repressive regime, attacking revolutionary guards, attacking Basij, attacking all the repressive apparatus. This is what we do. And I think that eventually we saw that the people of Iran want to fight for their freedom, to regain their freedom. And they paid heavy prices for that. But no one was there. It is clear they couldn't do that alone. I think that this operation can create the conditions for that. But at the end of the day, as you quoted, it can be done without the Iranian people themselves.
And does that include attacking Iranian fuel depots? Because as you know, Axios here in Barak Ravid is reporting that after Israel struck 30 Iranian fuel depots this weekend, it went beyond what Washington had expected, sparking perhaps the first rift, at least publicly, between these two allies. An Israeli official says that the U.S. reaction was literally, quote, WTF, and that a Trump advisor says the president didn't like the attack because it spooked oil markets, which we've seen skyrocket in the last 48 hours alone. Are you needlessly fracturing the most important relationship that you need and depend upon for this war?
We have a very good coordination with our friends from the American administration, both in the political and military level, and we are not handling that in the media. What I can say on the thing itself is we struck several fuel storage complexes used by the Iranian military forces. So it was the purpose of these strikes was to hurt Iranian military activity. It is in war, it happened, and whatever we should say, we say between us and our friends from the American administration, it's a very tight, close coordination and cooperation.
Did you hear concern from the American?
By the way, I want to emphasize the fact that the war of Iran, you can see it when they also target states which are not our friends, like Turkey or Qatar. From Iranian perspective, it's a war against all American allies in this region, because the US president had really done here something which is very great. He decided to act. We had a lot of talks in the past with regard to proliferation of nuclear weapons. I can remind you that during the 90s, President Clinton warned North Korea not to do it, but they had done it because eventually there was no one to back words with deeds. What President Trump had done here is great from an historical point of view and also from the point of view of American leadership in the world.
Is there concern, though, with actions like these? I know Israel says that it struck these fuel depots because they were being used by the IRGC. Is there concern, though, given the images that we've seen over the skies of Tehran, even by some of this reporting from Axios that the White House did not expect this type of strike to this degree and extent. Is there concern that in your attempt to help the Iranian people, it could in fact backfire and turn them against Israel and the United States in their effort to topple the regime?
I don't think so. I think we know what we do. I think we are coordinated with the United States, which is our greatest ally and a partner to this important war, by the decision, the courageous decision of President Trump. And we will act with wisdom, and we will act in order to, among other things, which I mentioned, with regard to the nuclear program, ballistic missiles program, and other things, we will create the best conditions for the Iranian people to regain their freedom. But eventually, it will be dependent on them. This is something that must be clear as well.
U.S. intelligence says Iran can still access highly enriched uranium at Isfahan. There are reports that the U.S. is even considering special ground forces to seize that enriched uranium, perhaps even alongside Israeli ground forces. Is that an option?
What I would say, Biana, that it is extremely not wise during war to hint or to say what operational moves you are going to do. I won't speak about these issues. I will only say we are decisive to achieve our objectives, and from my impression, the American administration is not less decisive than us.
Let me turn now to the fight against Hezbollah, which has entered this war as well by launching strikes initially at Israel, and now Israel then responding. The death toll is in the hundreds now. Your North Command says that Hezbollah is fighting completely independently of Tehran. If degrading Iran to this point has not deterred Hezbollah, what is your actual exit strategy in Lebanon? Does that include sending a massive amount of ground forces into Lebanon?
Again, first of all, the coordination, the operational coordination between Iran and Hezbollah is less important than the fact that they were joining this war by an Iranian demand. And it only demonstrates that they are not loyal to Lebanon. They are working against the will of the Lebanese people. They are working against the will of the Lebanese government. And therefore, it is clear we will act. We will act strongly as much as we do. We will do what we have to do, but we will not lose the understanding that our main objectives are in Iran. And this is very important because in wars, you always have main front and secondary efforts. Our main front will continue to be Iran. But I can assure you that Hezbollah capabilities will be, they were already degraded during the war on 2024, but they were dramatically, we'll do that in a more dramatic way during the next days. And this is very important to the security of our nation, but it is not less important to the Lebanon's future, because at the end of the day, if Lebanon will not dismantle the Hezbollah, it will remain under a de facto Iranian occupation. They are not free, they are not sovereign when Hezbollah, by instructions from Tehran, can do whatever they want to do there, and they cannot enforce discipline. So again, the government of Lebanon spoke about that they want to dismantle the Hezbollah. It was their decision, but they didn't do that eventually. I hope that we will degrade the capabilities and the forces of Hezbollah to the extent that they will be able to do that, because it's important for our security. It's also important for Lebanon's future.
So is one of Israel's top objectives now in Lebanon the assassination, the elimination of Mug'tebā Kh'meināi?
As I said previously, we never in a war declare what will be our operational steps or actions. For that kind of things, you will have to wait and see.
Okay, Mr. Foreign Minister, I know you are tight for time. If I could just get one more very important question in here, because the American public is very concerned about what we're seeing in terms of gas prices going up, oil prices going up, U.S. service members being killed. You had your chief of staff tell the Israeli public that this war will be a long war. President Trump then telling the American public that it will end both when he and Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to it on their own terms. What does that timeline look like? And is Israel prepared for the United States to perhaps pull out of this war sooner than Israel would like?
We will coordinate with the U.S. and we will communicate with the U.S. not through the media. We had a mutual decision. We thought it is important, it is historic, and I just want to say one thing. See what Iran is doing now to all its neighbors in the Gulf, Azerbaijan, Qatar, Turkey, UAE, not only to Israel. Imagine what they would have done if they eventually got nuclear weapons. So this is the kind of regime we are speaking about. It's the most extremist regime on earth. And it is to prevent from this kind of regime to have the means to totally change the reality, not only in the Middle East, but far beyond that. They always worked against American interests. And right now, when they are attacking all these states, they are attacking American interests. So I believe it was the right thing to do. When you go to a war, you always have prices. There are no free lunches, and it's tough to be in war. But sometimes it's more dangerous not to act than to act. And I'm sure that in this case, we both had the right decisions to act. And I praise both leaders, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, for leading and bringing these tough decisions and also taking both nations to do what they have to do now in Iran.
Mr. Foreign Minister, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it today.
Thank you so much.